Hey everyone, and welcome to a brand new video. Tonight we have a little bit over 2 hours worth of horror stories as per usual. I hope you all enjoy them. If you do, please be sure to drop a like rating. Let's aim for 1,200 likes. If everybody took a quick second, I think we could do it. Subscribing if you're new is also very much appreciated, as I post content just like this all of the time. Also, this video was recorded over the span of the last 3 or 4 days. I am only just now starting to full-time use my vocal practice voice, so I was also very sick for a lot of these recordings, so some are better than others. I tried to put some of the better ones towards the front, but some of them are just not great, and that is what it is. But hopefully with time, I will only get better and better. Enjoy the video, and as always, I hope you all have a great night. Some of y'all know the computer game called Phasmophobia. It was a bit of an underground hit a few years ago. Anyway, I picked it up shortly after it entered early access, but was having a hard time finding people to play with. So I jumped on the Discord to find a group of people to play with. I had actually never used Discord before, and unfortunately met a lot of people who were a little mean to me because of my inexperience with understanding how to use it. Eventually I met a couple of people who were nice and friendly and helped me understand how to use it. I was older than them, and they'd call me Grandpa in a fun way. I took that nickname with joy. While waiting for others to join our games, we'd often just chat and they'd tell me about what was going on in their lives. The romantic drama, the soul-crushing expectations of work and school, the random depression, anxiety, and ennui we all experience. I don't know why, but people have always been comfortable opening up to me, and in return, I always try to offer advice, or at least a sympathetic ear. That's how I met Yumi. She was an online friend of one of the people whose group adopted me as their grandpa, and eventually, she was there for every game night. She was in a time zone an hour ahead of me and a few hours ahead of the rest of the group. Many times, I'd turn on my computer, and as soon as I logged into Discord, she'd send me a message. Up for chasing ghosts tonight? Sure, let me get ready. Send me the lobby info, I'll be there in a second. She'd send over the server info and I'd hop on. I always bought all the equipment for our team. It's what grandpas do after all. Then we'd wait for others to join. Sometimes we would play around, just the two of us, because we knew it was going to be a while for the others to get off work. She was a very sweet girl, but troubled. Boy problems, family problems, work problems, school problems. She admitted that she felt inadequate in all those realms, and I listened to her and told her stories of the times I felt the same way, and how things managed to turn out all right. We'd start around together, and worked well as a team trying to solve the mysteries that the game presented us with. There'd be shrieks and screams followed by nervous laughter. The shrieking was mostly me, though. She always was cool as a cucumber, except when she wanted to get lost in the game. One evening, we were waiting in the lobby together, and she asked me, "Hey, do you mind if we just hop on without waiting for the others? I've had a bad day and just want to forget about it." I said that I'd be happy not to wait, and that I hoped everything was alright, and that I totally understand about wanting to distract yourself with the game. We loaded in and thought that I should really ham it up, squeal and scream to try and make her laugh a little. It worked. I'd hear her giggle on her mic, and I'd make fun of myself to keep it going. We finished the mission and returned back to the lobby, and she seemed to be in a better mood. Back in the lobby, she asked, "If I tell you something, do you promise not to think I'm crazy?" I can't promise that, but I can promise I won't think you're the craziest person I've ever met. Do you believe in premonitions? In a way, yes. I once had one. What happened with your premonition? Did it come true? When I was a child, I had a dream that I was in an empty house where every room had a different color carpet. And in the hallway, there was a door that opened to a staircase going down into darkness. Above the stairs was a little cabinet. I opened it and found a gun. A year or two later, my family moved and the house had different colored carpets in every room. I told my mother, "There is a gun in the cabinet above the basement stairs." She thought I was crazy. She didn't believe there was a cabinet above the basement stairs, let alone a gun in it, but I told her that I was sure of it. So we both went and unlocked the basement door, and sure enough, there was a cabinet above the stairs, and when she opened it, there was a rusted revolver. So it came true. What happened in your dream after you found the gun? What did your mother do with it? Yeah, I suppose it did. My dream ended when I found the gun, and similarly, my mother threw it away when she found it. I'm worried. About what? I had a premonition too. It felt different. Not like a dream, not like my imagination. Like it was real. What happened in your premonition? I died in a car crash. It was a rainy day. I was getting off work. I felt tired and just wanted to get home. The light had just turned green, and a few seconds later, bright lights were coming towards me from the side, and then I saw my body pinched between metal and glass, bleeding on myself. What makes you think it's a premonition? I don't know. It was just different. It's hard to explain. I thought I was really happening until I saw myself dead. Probably think I'm crazy now. I don't think you're crazy, but in this case, I hope that you are. Just remember what you saw and be careful about traffic lights. But there wasn't anything you could have done about your premonition, right? I mean, the gun was there, above the stairs. No matter what, you could have done differently. Yeah, I suppose that's right, but you shouldn't think of it as fate or destiny, because even if it is, you shouldn't let the fear of the future rob you of enjoying the present. We talked about it for a few more minutes when everyone else from the group joined our server, and Yumi changed the subject. And we began talking with the new arrival about how their day was, and it lightened the mood. She was a totally different person, bubbly and cheery, empathetic to the trials and tribulations of our friend. Completely moving on from the conversation we just had. Eventually a fourth player joined us as well, and we spent the rest of the evening chasing virtual ghosts. Over the next couple of days, everything went back to normal. Yumi and I would log on before the others, play a round or two by ourselves, and then a few more rounds with the others before calling it a night. Neither she nor I mentioned the premonition again. We just had fun enjoying the present, with other good people trying to do the same. About 2 weeks later, I log on to Discord and wait for her message, but it never came. She wasn't even online. I didn't think anything of it at first. There were days when I was on, or she was on, and the other wasn't. But then it happened a few days in a row, which was unusual. But nobody in the group mentioned anything. 4 or 5 days later, she comes back online and sends a message to the group chat. Hi everyone. This isn't Yumi, by the way. I'm her IRL friend. Yumi passed away in an accident a few days ago. Her mom told me that I should take her computer and save her pictures and stuff. When I turned it on, Discord opened, so I thought I'd let you all know. She talked about you all a lot. I don't know her password, so I'm going to log out of the account without deleting it. I'm sorry to give you the news like this. I wasn't even sure I should because it feels creepy, but I hope you'll remember her. I was shocked. It was so strange to have met this person without her having been there in the presence, for them to quickly and easily become a part of your normal life, and then for them to suddenly vanish, to ghost you in an almost literal sense. I still think about it, even though it's been years. But the reason I decided to tell y'all about this story is because I received a message on Discord today. It said, "Up for chasing ghosts tonight?" I was always so excited to finally go to college. Now that I'm here, the story is totally different. I always dreamt of living in a dorm, meeting my new roommates, making more friends, and maybe meeting the love of my life. After night 1, all of those dreams became very short-lived. I ended up choosing a dorm where I'd only have one roommate, and we'd share a living space/bedroom. Pretty typical for college dorm setup, right? Well, my bid for a roommate came in an Instagram DM from Sarah, an incoming freshman from Tucson, Arizona. She seemed nice enough. A quick swipe through her feed led me to a glimpse of her life. She had a love for photography, all things artistic, and an undying devotion to her family dog named Buddy. Of course I met Sarah on move-in day, after appropriately being coated in sweat from the Arizona heat. and carrying my entire packable life up 4 flights of stairs. She greeted me in our dorm. Let me tell you a couple things about Sarah. 1, she never looks bad, and I mean never. A hurricane couldn't misplace a hair on her head. 2, she's obsessed with the color pink. I've always thought our favorite colors reflect more of our personalities than we'd like to believe, so do with that information what you will. Our parents left shortly after. We'd had our tearful goodbyes and all the mushy, make sure you call as often as you can chats. I'm not much of an extrovert, but before I knew it, Sarah was face down in her phone looking for parties and other weekend events. Come on, she crooned. Don't be fucking lame already. I decided to politely decline her surely vodka-oriented invitations and made up an excuse about unpacking. Here's where it gets weird. The first night in the dorm, I stayed up until probably 2 a.m., settling into my surroundings and decorating my side of the dorm until it didn't remind me of a jail cell. Where was Sarah, you ask? Yeah, not home. I didn't even have her phone number to text her, and I also didn't want to deal with a shit-faced co-ed after moving all day. Fast forward to 5 a.m. I hear the door lock jiggle before it finds the path of least resistance and opens. Much to my surprise, I'm met with quiet shuffling as Sarah moved around the room. Even in my drowsiness, I was put on alert. I mean, who can be that quiet when they're that drunk? Naturally, I roll over to check out the scene, and when I do, I find myself nose to nose with my roommate. I threw myself into the brick wall behind me and let out a scream of terror. Yet there she stood. She never moved or flinched, just kept her place, steadily breathing with a menacing smile. She remained in her statuesque pose for about 5 minutes while my adrenaline wore off. However, she kept smiling. She smiled until drool lined the corners of her mouth, then streamed past its barrier and dropped onto my comforter. I didn't know what the fuck kind of sleepwalking this was, but I was not a fan. After choking down my own fear, I calmly reached for her, placing my hands on each of her arms. After a few head-jolting shakes, she snapped back into reality. She never mentioned what had just happened, but instead ran her bare wrist across her lips to collect the remaining spittle and shot me a quick good night before piling into her twin XL. I could have written this incident as a one-off, but it's been happening every night since then. I've told my RA. I've talked to Sarah about it during daylight hours. I've consulted my friends and parents, but they all chalk it up to sleepwalking. I know everyone has their own differences and sleepwalking tendencies, but it's not just the smiling. The other night I woke up to her crouched over our bathroom sink looking into the mirror. If she'd been silent, I probably could have continued my REM cycle. She was talking to someone, not herself, but someone. I caught just enough of the conversation to hear her asking them when they wanted her home, and how she was almost done with her list. She heard me after I rolled over a little too fast, causing the springs under me to creak unforgivingly. Immediately afterwards, her focus snapped towards me. It was pitch black, but I could still see her neck pivoted in a way which is not humanly possible. Then, bones creaking as she pried herself away from the mirror. She shuffled towards me once again, mouth watering as she bore her teeth in that god-awful smile. She lowered herself closer, settling when we were once again nose to nose. "You're last," she hissed, panting on my face. I don't need to know what that list is to understand her, but I don't want to find out the specifics. She just climbed into bed like she was calling in an early night after she said it too. I've dealt with this all year, and the semester is almost over. I really want to at least survive my freshman year. I recently returned to my hometown to visit my best friend Elena in her brand new house. In high school, she and her family had to move around a bunch. No one had a lot of money, and Elena's family most of all. They'd bounce from trailer to apartment to spare room for the entire time I knew her, never settling in a place for longer than a few months. Consequently, I think she developed a kind of obsession with the idea of owning a home, not just a house, but a place that was hers, and hers alone, somewhere no one could take from her, that she would never have to leave. This, I theorize, was why she ended up marrying a rich guy her second year of college, moving back to our hometown and settling down with Brian, rich guy in question, in the house of her wildest dreams. Kind of a shame. She'd always been smart, with an excellent eye for color and aesthetics that meant she'd have made a good designer. As well, she's chatty, bubbly, blonde. She's always joked she was the older Brian's trophy wife, and though when she said it, she was pretty funny about it, there was always a flicker, a hint of strain in her smile. Still, first world problems and all that. It's not like anyone held a gun to her head, and now she's easily the richest person from our graduating class, so who am I to judge? I caught a flight from Los Angeles to Seattle in the weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I rented a car outside SeaTac and, under driving sheets of frigid rain, headed west across Puget Sound, onto the Olympic Peninsula, an arrowhead of mountain and forest sticking out into the Pacific Ocean. The night was dense with rain and fog, the darkness tangible in a way California's never is. Glancing out the rain-washed windows of the small Honda, I watched the walls of massive trees flash by on either side of the road, feeling civilization slip away like a dream behind me. I experienced a small, strange shudder of relief when at least the lights of the hometown glowed through the night, assuring me I hadn't somehow taken a wrong turn and gotten lost in the forest, never to find my way home. The next day, the rain still hadn't let up. I'd expected that and dressed accordingly. If winters in the Pacific Northwest aren't wet and cold, they're doing something wrong. I visited my only remaining family, my aunt who treated the whole visit like a vague annoyance, then headed in my rental car, with much more pleasant anticipation, out of the town proper and into the subdivision that had grown like a tumor from the much older suburbs. I watched the scenery with bemusement. When Elena and I were kids, this whole area was all forest. Huge firs and cedars growing together so densely the woods were nearly silent. Nothing but the faint rustle of the wind through ferns, the faraway bird song, our own breathing to break the hush. We delved as deep as we dared into this jungle, a labyrinth of green and shadow, ropey roots and tangled undergrowth. All of that was gone, bulldozed down. In its place were houses. These weren't the small, shabby homes of the suburbs behind me, not even close. These rose from manicured lawns, roofs so new that they hadn't even grown moss, which I didn't think was possible out here. Vast, turreted structures with 3, sometimes 4 stories, windows gaping at uneven levels, mismatched and clashing with the rest of the house's design. If you could even say they'd been designed at all. These massive beige edifices looked as if they'd sprouted straight from Escher's nightmare. Strangely organic, unplanned, somehow raw. A few even had freaking columns on their ugly brick entryways, like we were back on the old plantation or something. I peered through the car's windows, a smile of disbelief playing over my face, trying to get a look at who might actually be living in these McMansions. But I saw no one in the yards, no one in the expensive cars parked in the wild driveways, no one through the windows, though some lights were on. It was like a ghost town in sheetrock and plywood and cheap vinyl mock wood siding. At last, I reached Elena's address. Her house was no different. Grayish, turreted, with some crenellations along the roof. Why? There were no balconies or ramparts up there, and a little colonnade leading up to the front door. I got out of the car and approached the steps, hands in my raincoat pockets, eyes wide as I drew nearer, into the house's shadow. It loomed over me, upper roofs cut out stark against the darkening evening sky. The porch light was on. Light illuminated some upper floor windows and 2 panes of gold. I thought I saw one of the front window curtains move and smiled at last. The house might be hideous, but at least Elena was inside. Maybe it was nicer in there. She'd always been a good decorator, and from what she'd said about Brian, I figured she'd give her free rein over the design. I picked up my pace as I hurried up the steps, freezing wind buffeting against the back of my coat. Far away, at the edge of the lawn, I thought I heard the hiss of the wind through the trees. I knocked. The sound echoed through the house. I waited. Something scuffled on the far side of the door. I grinned, waiting for the door to open. It didn't. I waited some more. The seconds stretched to minutes. I let out my breath and texted Elena. The read receipts popped up, but I didn't get any reply. I gave Elena a call, but it went to voicemail. Hey, this is Elena Hall. Leave me a message. Bye. I chewed my lip, turning to stare out at the street and my rental car parked along the curb. The darkness was so thick by then I could barely see it. The light from the house didn't reach that far. Cold flushed through me. I faced the house again quickly. Why did I do that? I shouldn't have asked. I didn't want to admit to myself I didn't like to have my back to the house. I didn't want to face away from it in case. Stop it. You're being weird. I shook my head and tried the door. Maybe Elena was in the bathroom or something. She'd always been picky about how her hair looked. The knob turned and the door opened and I stepped through, into the warmth of the house. The front hall echoed. My gaze traveled up and up into the white painted heights of the enormous room. A stairway with wrought iron balusters curved along the wall, leading to a mezzanine high above. From the heights glittered a chandelier, glass drops and electric bulbs like something from a Pottery Barn version of Phantom of the Opera. The thermostat on the wall read nearly 70 degrees, but I still shivered inside my raincoat. The air chilly. I doubted this room ever truly got warm. It smelled like vanilla incense, but underneath the sweat scene, I caught a hint of something chemical, something bitter, like fresh paint. Maybe they'd just finished this room. It looked clean enough, clinically so. Had anyone ever sat in these faux French provinical chairs? Had those come straight from Olive Garden or what? I'd been wrong. Whoever picked those, it sure as hell wasn't Elena. Elena? I called. My voice rang off into the silence. Hello? Elena? It's Kate. Answer your phone, dickhead. No answer. My heart ticked against my ribs. Elena? I called again, stepping deeper into the room. I peered down the hallway. The lights were on, little sconces along the mellow gold wallpaper. At the end was a full-length mirror with an ornate gilt frame. I saw my own face reflected in it. My wet hair stuck to my cheeks, my eyes wide. Brian? Was Elena okay? Maybe she'd fallen and hit her head. Was she somewhere in the house, injured, unable to call for help? My phone in my hand, I hurried down the hallway, looking into the doors lining the walls. A sitting room, a closet, an office. One led into a kitchen, expensive appliances humming on black marble countertops. Large wooden letters over the dining table read, "Eat and Blessed." Rain splattered the windows. No one there. My mouth tasted bitter like the smell of the front room. I threaded my way through the halls, sitting rooms, and multiple bathrooms of the first floor and came back into the atrium, more than a little nervous. I caught another glimpse of myself in the gold-framed mirror, then tore my gaze away. Without hesitation, I headed for the stairs. If she wasn't down here, perhaps she was in a bedroom. I wasn't going to leave without making sure she was all right. Elena? I called as I climbed higher, reaching the level of the chandelier. It chimed softly, air disturbed by my presence. As I reached the balcony, it chimed again. I looked back in time to see the crystals shiver, then still. I shook my head and stepped into the shadowy halls of the second floor. More mirrors waited up here. The first room I entered was some kind of entertainment den. Salmon pink walls enclosed an enormous pleather sectional, facing the blank black mirror of a truly staggering flat-screen TV. Shelves of board games and books, big sound system, PS5, a black and white print of the Parisian skyline. Mirrors lined the walls, reflecting me on all sides. Anxiety itched at the base of my throat. This wasn't my house. What was I doing, snooping around? I peered behind the couch, behind a large beanbag chair, even under a pile of blankets folded in a corner, but there was no sign of Elena. As I faced the room again, I saw it. Just a flicker, movement that wasn't my own, reflected in the mirrors. I went still. My reflection did too. I stared at it, at myself. I didn't see it again. What did I see? Just a moment of movement, like someone stepping out of sight behind a bookshelf. I checked, but the space behind the shelf was empty, but I'd seen it. I licked my lips. Elena, I said again. Come on, seriously. Had I expected an answer? I'd hoped for one. This place is getting under your skin. Too many rooms, too much clashing decor. Elena had always decorated her room with anime figurines and kitschy cute vintage porcelain statuettes. Not this garbage. It had been one of the things we'd bonded over, making fun of people with more money than sense. She was a poor girl with no phone. I was the only Chinese kid in our whole school. We had to stick together to survive. What the actual fuck? I muttered, staring into the cherub's fat little face. There had to be a bedroom around here somewhere. I left the room and went deeper, through an arched doorway into yet another hall. This one had different wallpaper to the halls downstairs. This time a faux Tuscan villa-inspired design, with printed on crackler and plaster bricks molded straight onto the walls. They'd already begun to shed white powder onto the carpet. The air stung against my face, colder than the game room or downstairs. Every so often I passed a window staring straight out into the rainy night. By now I could see nothing of the streets below. The rain too thick, the darkness too opaque to make out my rental car. My footsteps were muffled on the beige carpet. My breathing was the loudest thing in the house. I thought again of the woods that had once been here. Had Elena and I, or any of our friends, ever walked across the place where this house was now? Had we ever gotten that bold and that far into the forest? They play tricks on you, the woods out here. It never took us long to get deeper than we intended. Each time we lost our way between the trees, there was this primordial terror, the fear we would never find our way out. Does that fear truly ever leave you? Now I can't be sure. I hope so. There were mirrors everywhere. In the hall, in the bathrooms. In case you wanted to watch yourself take a shower, I guess. Maybe Brian was more of a freak than Elena had let on. In the library, even with its high-end desktop computer and closet stuffed with empty Amazon boxes. This room had a large bay window that I didn't remember seeing from the outside. A slight breeze whistled through a gap in the panes, evidence of a shoddily set frame. Was I in the back portion of the house now? I tried to orient myself, but with the weirdness of the halls, the mismatched decor, and many turns I'd made, and the seemingly random layout, I couldn't. It just didn't make any sense. I backed into the hallway once more, and there it was. In the mirror next to the library door, something moved. Something dark. I glimpsed a hand gripping the door frame behind me. A slightly crouched form, face obscured by long, black, slick hair. A hand slid from the frame and was gone. I whirled around. Nothing. Shaking. I rushed into the room and flicked on the light, but the room was empty. No furniture, not even a carpet. I swallowed, the bitter taste once again in my mouth. Footsteps scuffled in the hall and I sprang back out. The mirror at the end of the hall showed me, showed a glimpse of someone standing behind me, an instant of a form and silhouette before it stepped smoothly out of sight into yet another doorway. A strangled sound clawed its way from my throat. I stumbled forward, turning one way, then the other. Did I want to face the mirror? Did I want to face the empty hall where I'd seen the thing standing? My hands were slick, my heart pounding. Fuck this. I was calling the police. But first I was getting the hell out of here. I whirled and sprinted down the hall back toward the game room, bursting through the doorway and into... No. This should have been the game room. Instead, another hall stretched before me, extending another 50-odd feet to another mirror. That wasn't just wrong. It was impossible. There wasn't room. From what I'd experienced, what I'd remembered, it should be intersecting with the upper part of the entryway, right across the hanging chandelier. I stood, staring, my mouth open before I managed to shake myself into sense again. I fumbled for my phone, my mouth dry as I registered the no service message on the upper corner of the screen. I dialed anyway. A pre-recorded message played in my ear, telling me what I already knew. I gripped my phone, panic boiling up into my chest. For an instant, the urge to fling it against a wall almost overwhelmed me. I made myself breathe. No, focus. This was just a house. This was just a house. You always got out of the woods. And Elena was in here somewhere with me. And so was... Don't think about that. I'd only seen it in mirrors, but wait, maybe it wasn't in them. Maybe it was restricted by them. It stepped out of sight whenever I saw it after all. I lifted my phone, hand trembling, and opened the camera app. A miniature view of the hall expanded in my screen. Nothing there. I turned and looked through the camera at the hall behind me. Was that a hand against the furthest door frame? I backed into the new hall, checking each door. Yet more rooms waited behind each one. Some seemed to be storage rooms full of boxes, old furniture, Christmas decorations stuffed into plastic bags. Some were living rooms, with more TVs, though none as big as the one in the pink game room. Some seemed to be for no purpose at all, just weird little elbows of space, oddly shaped as if to compensate for a mistake in the architect's plan. One had an enormous canvas print of a golden retriever puppy tacked onto the wall. Elena had never mentioned owning a dog. Come to think of it, I think I'd seen that stock photo on Google Images. I kept the camera trained on doorways, on halls. The thing was always there, at the edges of the screen, slipping out of sight the second I glimpsed it, but always keeping the same distance from me, following me. It didn't draw closer as I wound my way deeper, finding a door that took me down a flight of carpeted stairs, into yet another hall. This one had burgundy walls and columns. Prints of European landscapes hung between each pair, each with its own fussy little brass lamp like it was an original museum piece, and not purchased in the venerable aisles of the Closet Michaels. The air was heavy here. Each breath was a little harder to draw than in the upper story halls. Charged, maybe. There were no windows. I think I was in the middle of the house. The heart, I thought, and shuddered. I was halfway down the hall when my phone buzzed. I flinched so hard I almost dropped it, pulse pounding a racket, shaking bad. I registered what I was seeing, a text message, but I still had no service. I opened the message. It was from Elena. I could barely read it. The text was corrupted or something, full of widgets, impossible to decipher. I tapped out a reply, not wanting to close the camera app for too long. Where are you? Tell me so I can find you. Another buzz. Another garbled message. I let out a snarl of frustration and began to tap another message when a photo pinged into the chat. It was corrupted too, but unlike the text, it was legible. I made out Elena, her eyes wide in a pale, terrified face. A mirror selfie, but the mirror didn't reflect part of the house. Behind her, I could see only dark trees, blurred slightly like she was shaking too. Another photo came through, this one more blurred, just darkness. The white shape of what might have been a hand in the lower right corner, blown out from the flash. A new message followed. It's dark in here. I felt it come at me. A rush, a warp, a shuddering shriek in the bones of the house around me. A burst of static snarled through my skull and I tasted blood. Shit. I'd taken my eyes off the camera for too long. I couldn't help it. I screamed, shoving myself blindly forward into the red hallway. Something thudded against the wall right where my head had just been. I was gone. Columns rushed past me. My footsteps pounded the laminate. The sound of scrabbling and clawing echoing through the hall around me. The walls seemed to pulse. Red paint almost wet. Almost organic. I didn't dare look back. Not to see it, not for anything. I careened around the corner of the hall and nearly toppled head first down the flight of steps, opening in the floor without warning. They were concrete, unfinished. The walls that enclosed them blank. Sheetrock. Nothing but a single bare bulb to illuminate the way. I didn't care. I plunged down them, taking two at a time, spilling and stumbling into the gritty, damp floor of an unfinished basement. Pools of grimy water splashed under my boots as I pelted through concrete columns, through scaffolding, past buckets of tools and scattered detritus. The air tore down my throat, so cold it burned, bitter and stagnant and awful. Was the thing still behind me? I didn't stop. I scrambled through a curtain of clear plastic, nearly eating it on a stack of moldy cardboard boxes. Find a way out. Find a way out. Find a way out. There it was. A door. I raced for it. Another gibbering howl of static seared through my brain as my hand closed over the knob. For an instant my heart seized. It didn't turn. It was locked. It was stuck. It was. It ground open and I fell through, legs giving out. I collapsed to my hands and knees on beige carpet. The door swung shut. I looked up, raking in air, my whole body numb. I blinked. Around me stretched the shadowy calm of a master bedroom. Large windows overlooked the night, framed by overly swagged and roughed curtains. The walls were pale gray-blue, matching the brocaded bedspread on the queen-size bed in the center of the room, padded headboard facing the entrance. The fall Tiffany lamp on the bedside table was switched on, throwing hazy colored lights over the figure sitting in the bed. It was Elena, no doubt. Her blonde hair hid her face. She wore an expensive-looking sweater and light-washed jeans, her feet bare, a phone hanging from her hand. I scrambled in my feet. Elena? I gasped, my voice almost gone. Warmth dripped from my nose. I scrubbed it away, leaving a wet red smear on my hand. Oh my God, Elena! She lifted her head. Her round face was blank, tear-stained. Hi, Kate, she said. I approached her. We have to get out of here. That thing. Where's Brian? Elena blinked. He got lost. Okay. We don't have much time. We've got to go. No, I've been here too long. She stood from the bed, behind me through the door out of the room. I heard a scrabbling, a clawing, a faint ringing filling my ears like the beginning of tinnitus. It's coming. I belong to this place now. What? No, that's fucking stupid. I wanted a home, Elena murmured. Her eyes were bright, tears clung to her lashes. I chose this one. It's mine. Why would I want to leave? Impact slammed into the door. Shut up, Lena. I began reaching for her arm. We are leaving. Too slow. Her hand snapped around my wrist. She looked at me, really looked. Deep in her eyes, gold glowed. The gold of Tuscan aesthetic wallpaper. The gold of light through a crystal chandelier that was only ever glass. She flung me hard. I hit a window. Its cheap latch broke with a twang, and I toppled over the windowsill out into the night. And then I was falling. The windows rushed away from me. Elena framed in it. Nothing more than a dark silhouette against those turrets and crenellations and towers and ramparts and bricks and gables and columns and more and more and more until it was no longer a house. It was everything. It was the world. It was a maze. It was rushing for me. It wanted me. It wanted to punish me. I'd gone where I didn't belong. I didn't belong. I didn't. I didn't feel myself hit the lawn. When I came to, I was in a hospital bed. Pine needles were still stuck in my hair, my hands covered in scratches, a massive bloody ache on the back of my head. My mouth tasted gritty, my body heavy with painkillers. One of the nurses was kind enough to explain what had happened. Apparently I'd been found unconscious in the forest near an old logging road. Luckily, a passing truck had seen my bright red raincoat. The forest, I murmured. No, I was in the neighborhood, my friend's house. You have to go help her. She's in trouble. The nurse gave me a puzzled look. The new neighborhood? All of those big, ugly mansions out west of town. Dread crept up my throat, bitter as the smell of fresh paint. That's where you were found, the nurse said. It's only forest, Kate. There's no neighborhood out there. There's never been a neighborhood out there. It was 7:45 p.m. on a Friday night. Truthfully, I got home from work at 7:30. I was just sitting there for 15 minutes staring at the kitchen light shine through the window on this dark evening and feeling the sense of dread that radiated from that house. Her house. My wife Megan was an amazing girlfriend. Cool, laid back, sexy. The kind of girl to throw back beers with you at the tailgate. Everything I ever wanted, but everything I never got. From the second I married her ungrateful ass, it's been nagging, jealous, insecure, dead bedroom, and no going out with my friends unless I want to be in the doghouse. I looked at the house that I once considered mine, and as I watched the lace curtains in the window, I felt my blood boil with resentment knowing that it's now her house. I took a deep breath and stepped out of the car. I instinctively reached for my pocket to check my phone, and I remembered why I had been waiting in the car so long. I left my phone at home that day with Meg. There was no way she didn't read through my texts or emails or browser history. Hell, she probably looked through my Amazon pictures. She never trusted me for shit. I sighed and walked to the door while my mind was screaming at my body to drive away and never come back. I hesitantly turned the doorknob and opened the door to my wife's house. As I opened the door and a gust of the scent of my favorite meal wafted into my face, a beef roast in the slow cooker. Meg hasn't made this since the time she told me she dented my car. I was immediately suspicious. Hi, honey, welcome home. I hear her sickly sweet voice call from the kitchen. I hesitantly walked in and saw her standing next to the slow cooker chopping up some carrots and humming Build Me Up Buttercup softly. Her long brown hair was perfectly curled. She was in a skin-tight pink dress. If I weren't so cautious, I'd have been drooling over her. Pot roast, huh? I said with a chuckle, trying to play it cool. Mm-hmm. She responded with a smile in a sing-songish tone. Oh, by the way, you left this here today, she said and handed me my phone. I took it from her hand, not breaking eye contact with her. The look she gives me was unsettling, like the coy expression of someone who knows a secret you don't. I hid my nerves and opened my phone. I go to my messages with Tawny. just the same as I last saw. I love you, baby. I had messaged her before bed. I love you more, my dear, she responded. I glanced up from my screen to my wife. She was just stirring the roast, unaware of the little box of lies I held in my hand. She glanced up at me. What? She said with a chuckle and a small smile. Oh, nothing. Just admiring my beautiful wife, I said as I slipped the phone in my pocket. I changed my password monthly at this point, so maybe she hadn't figured it out. Well, dinner is almost done. Why don't you have a seat? She said with a nod towards the table. I walked over to the head of the table, and that's when I noticed it. The extra chair and extra place setting. What's this about, baby? I asked her, pointing a thumb to the extra place. Oh, we're having someone for dinner, she said excitedly as she walked over and set the crock pot gently on the table. She took my plate and puts a heaping helping of roast on it. I was still suspicious of whatever she did that needs such an extravagant apology dinner for. She then took her plate and gives herself a serving and sits down. Who's coming for dinner? I asked her with a confused tone. She just laughed and sat down. I look again at the empty place setting. Megan, who's coming for dinner? I asked again, a little frustrated at being ignored. She laughed again as she cut her roast and popped a bite into her mouth. She inhaled sharply and looked to the upper left of her vision, as if she were thinking. Why don't you tell me about Tawny? She asked with a smile as she cut off another mouthful. My heart drops, and ice water runs through my body, knowing I've been caught. She's a colleague, I sputter out. Meg scoffs at me. Yeah, a colleague who sends you a picture of her rack? She asks and stares intently at me. I drink some water to buy myself some time to think of an answer. It's not like that, Meg, I say sheepishly. I look down at my plate and start cutting aimlessly at the meal. Fidgeting makes me feel anxious. It's only a matter of time before she flies off the handle. I'm sure it's not. She's cute. I can't blame you. A hot little blonde 22-year-old. I'm sure she has no dad since she's such a slut. That's why you're always willing to be her daddy, yeah? She grills me as she punctures her roast with her fork and has another slice. The sound of her fork scraping her teeth were worse than nails on a chalkboard. I take a bite of my dinner as I mull over my next move. I chewed slowly to milk as much time as I can and come up with a way out of this. I begin the speech every person who's been in my situation tells. Meg, listen. I'm sorry. It didn't mean... No. She cut me off as she stabs her fork into her roast and points at me. No, you're not gonna do that. I'm not fucking stupid. It wasn't an accident. You did it, and now you're gonna face what you did, she says to me. This statement catches me off guard. Why? What do you mean? I ask her, feeling like I'm finally getting to the bottom of her antics. Tawny didn't know you're married, did she? She asks me with an evil smile. No, she didn't, I say as I stare down at my plate and slowly chew another mouthful. Anything to stall the shame of admitting what I'd done. Truthfully, I don't feel bad for lying to Meg. I feel bad for lying to Tawny. I know Meg would never let me leave, so I'm just leading that sweet girl on. Yeah, I figured as much. Your birthday isn't a good phone password, you know, she says to me before taking a sip of her Merlot. It was so easy to text her and ask her if she wanted to have dinner with her sweet, sweet lover, Isaac, she says, still holding the glass to her lip and smiling. She isn't even looking at me, just looking off into the distance like she's reveling in her genius plan to get me caught. That's who's coming? Meg, come on. You're mad at me, not her. Why would you want to embarrass her like this? I lied. That doesn't make her a homewrecker. I said quickly as I stomped towards the window and look out it. Our street is pretty quiet, but she hasn't arrived yet and I can't see cars coming. I didn't want her to find out and have her leave me. Tawny is the last bit of love I have left in this pathetic existence I'm living. I don't want to lose her. I peered around the neighborhood as quickly as I could for any hint she's arriving. Isaac, sit down, she said sternly. No, this is bullshit. I really can't fucking believe you'd stoop this. Sit the fuck down, she yells as she thrusts the carving knife into the table. Not wanting to piss her off further, I oblige. Here's how it's going to be. I don't want a divorce. We're going to be together forever like you promised me. Her getting cut loose is the only way. I'm not going to share my man, not with a little whore like her, she says. Okay, well, we can talk about this, but she's not fucking coming here for dinner, I say as I pick up my phone and begin calling her number in hopes to come up with an excuse fast enough as to why she can't come home. Looking for another excuse to fidget, I hold my phone with my shoulder and begin cutting the meat for another bite. That's when I hear it, the muffled ringing coming from the drawer under the sink. What the fuck? Was she already here, Meg? I ask. Meg starts laughing to herself. I open the drawer to see Tawny's phone and the ring I got her for our Valentine's date. One of her birthstone earrings, and worst of all, a little clump of wheat-colored hair, tied up in a black ribbon. I looked at my wife, seething with rage and hatred. Meg, what the fuck did you do? I ask her. She gets up and puts a firm and painful grip to the back of my neck and quickly glides me to the table. She sharply lurches my upper body forward so I'm parallel with the table hovering over my crock pot. She removed the lid, and when the steam cleared from my face, on the roast I see the vague shape I am very familiar with. A little butterfly on the roast, the one I've ran my hands over many times. My stomach turns and I feel lightheaded. Hot tears run down my face and into the dish. It feels like all the air has been sucked out of my body. I could die right now. This can't be real. It can't be real. My wife leans so her lips almost touch my ear and with that sickening, syrup-sweet voice whispered, I told you. We were having her for dinner. Hey, something weird happened to me last night and I need a little help wrapping my head around it. My wife, Steph, and I moved into this beautiful raised ranch home of 28 acres of forest in the Gatineau Hills yesterday, and I'm already regretting it. We got a lot unpacked and put away. I was even able to set up 4 wireless cameras around the outside of the house that sends a notification to my phone when there is motion. 1 for each side of the house. Unfortunately, the Ring camera won't be here until next week. Never needed to use any of this stuff being in the city, but I figured with all the wildlife around here, this would be a really good idea. I even set up the ringtone to be Carol Ann from Poltergeist saying, "They're here," because I thought it'd be funny. After the long day, Steph and I were finally able to go to our new room and relax with a movie and cuddles. We were both exhausted and needed the break. We laid there and watched Scream 5 for about an hour before everything started. It was about 9 p.m., so it was pretty dark outside, especially with the cover of trees, but thank God for night vision. My phone goes off. They're here. I picked up the phone hoping to see maybe a deer, or maybe even a bear since there are around these parts. I look at the camera that pings, seeing nothing. Weird, but maybe it was a bird that flew off. I put the phone down and continued the movie. About 20 minutes later, "They're here" goes off again. I picked up my phone and again nothing there. This happened again 5 minutes later and again 5 minutes after that. It was then I decided to keep my phone in my hand and watch. I stared at my phone, trying to get a glimpse of what the these cameras are picking up. Off in the tree line, I could see something moving behind a tree. I couldn't make out, though. It was just a mass bobbing out every so often. They're here. Something, what looked like a ball, was suddenly launched from where the mass hid, setting off the camera and falling out of frame. That was strange, and Steph agreed, but the thing isn't moving behind the tree anymore, so maybe it was a bear and went away. Can bears throw things? About 2 hours later, I was finally ready to turn in for the night. Steph had fallen asleep about 45 minutes earlier, and all was quiet with the cameras. Right when I had closed my eyes, the camera went off. They're here. I grabbed the phone, groaned, and looked. It was the front camera this time. Again, nothing was there. Bang, bang, bang. Someone pounded on the door. I got up and rushed downstairs because the knocking was beginning to shake the house. Bang, bang, bang. I crept up to the violently beaten door to peer outside the peephole. Right before my eyes hit the hole, the banging stopped and no one was there. They're here. My phone went off, making me jump off the ground. I looked at the phone just to see a white, flowing garment leaving the frame. I opened the door and stepped outside. I was greeted with silence. It was as if the air itself had stopped. The pit of my stomach felt heavy like a brick sat buried inside. The feeling was too much, so I went inside quickly, locking the door. I went around the house, making sure all the windows and doors were barred, turned off the lights, and went upstairs. Somehow my wife had just slept through all of it and lay peacefully oblivious to the world. I sat there and pondered if I should maybe call the police, but decided against it, thinking worse if it's just some neighborhood kids, knowing we just moved in. I laid down, but sleep had eluded me for a few hours as I tossed and turned to await the terror to continue. I ended up falling asleep, but that only lasted 45 minutes when I heard it again. They're here. I looked at my phone. 3 a.m. Clicking it on the camera came into view. A lone girl with long, flowing hair and a white gown stood on my back lawn. Her head was down so I could not see her face, and she just stood there. I sat there for a minute just watching, making sure I wasn't hallucinating from my lack of sleep. I ended up waking Steph up to show her and make sure I wasn't going crazy. Yeah, she is definitely there. She may need help. We should really go down, she said. I agreed and headed downstairs. My phone was in my hand as I periodically checked to make sure she was still there until we reached the back door. I opened the door slowly and shouted, "Are you okay over there?" She gave no response, so I headed outside. I walked slowly, asking her if I needed to call the police or if she needed to come inside as Steph stayed back in case she needed to grab the first aid kit. As I got within 10 feet of her, she looked up. Her hair parted from her face, revealing a white mask. Blood-red droplets, painted on resembling tears, fell from the eye holes. I was so thrown off by the mask I almost missed her dropping a knife into her hand concealed by the gown. She ran towards me and laughed, screaming like a wild animal. The knife came out, slicing the inside of my arm. Blood squirted out, splashing her dress. I moved to the side, throwing my arms out and shoving her down so she rolled away and I had time to run. I ran, hearing her get up, and her feet pound the grass made me run faster. I made it into the door, slamming it just in time, locking it. Steph grabbed my arm, asking what the fuck just happened and who the fuck was that. We quickly ran to the kitchen to clean up the cut fast while the psychotic woman banged on the door with the knife. They're here, they're here, they're here. As Steph grabbed the first aid kit, I looked at my phone. Most people were walking into the camera. They were all wearing white, flowing clothes, and the ones whose faces I could see donned weird white masks. I grabbed Steph and raced upstairs without a word. Now they were banging on the front door and windows all around the house trying to get in. We ran to our room where I locked our door. I toppled our dresser, barricading us in. I ran to the window and looked outside. About 5 people were standing under looking up, knowing where we were. I took out my phone and dialed 911. It rang while Steph bandaged my arm the best she could, but I needed stitches. 911, what is your emergency? The operator asked. I yelled into the phone explaining the situation, asking for the police and fast. She told me they were 30 minutes out and to hold tight in a secured place. My phone continued to vibrate as more and more came out of the woods. I grabbed a baseball bat from under the bed and handed Steph the knife I kept in my nightstand, while the banging continued outside. A crash came from downstairs as they breached into the house. I could hear them shuffling downstairs, piling in. I held Steph close and whispered our love for each other as the stairs creaked as they ascended them. We knew this was the end. If it was 1 or 2, then maybe I could have had a fighting chance, but there had to be at least 12, and I knew I wouldn't be able to fight my way out. They reached our door. Bang, bang, bang. There was a rhythmic pounding as they tried to get in, then metal scraping as they began to stab the door. A knife pierced through the shining beam of light from the hallway. I kissed Steph one last time, closing my eyes as I held her close as I could. The pounding stopped suddenly. No noise, no shuffling, nothing. I knew it was too good to be true, so I just waited for the shoe to drop. We sat there waiting for what seemed like an eternity, but in actuality, it was about 7 minutes of silence. Blue and red lights flashed against my eyelids, which made me open them. The cop shouted out hello from downstairs. We cautiously got up to go to the door, pushing the dresser out of the way and opening the door. The only thing out of place upstairs was the single knife hole in the door. I yelled at the cop that we were coming down. As we made our way down, again we realized nothing was out of place. As we reached the police officer, he introduced himself as Sergeant Bachman and told us about the door being open, which is how he got in. After we explained the events of the night, I went to pull up the security footage of the event to show him. File corrupted was all that displayed. All the night's events were gone. As we looked around, the only evidence that anything happened was the knife hole, my arm, and our word. The police say they will have extra patrols in the area in case anything happens, but we have decided to stay in a motel not knowing what to do. That is where I am writing this now. What could it have been? People playing a prank? A cult? Ghosts? Aliens? I just don't know. I am at a loss here. How does that many people just show up and leave without a trace? I loved my life before it reset. I was a 52-year-old man with a wife and many kids and my own business that let me move my family to an upper middle class home. I can remember everything from that life. My earliest memory is living in foster home after my parents had died when I was 12. The trauma caused me a lot of memory loss, so the details are unclear. But I know it was in a car crash where I was the only survivor. I was adopted a year after the accident by the most perfect parents I could have asked for. After high school, they paid for me to go to university, where I got my degree in mechanical engineering. It was at university where I met my wife. I fell in love almost instantly, and she felt the same. We moved in together when we were 20 years old and haven't been apart since. After school, I started working as an engineer for a different company every 2 or so years. Although I was being paid well and was able to afford a nice apartment, it wasn't ideal switching jobs so often. I started my own practice when I turned 28 with the money I had saved over the last 6 years. It started slow, but picked up very fast, turning profits after just a year of opening shop. The profits kept getting higher, and soon I was making more money than me and my wife could have ever need for ourselves. It was when I turned 30 that my wife and I decided to have kids. We used the money my business had made to buy a house and started trying for kids. 2 years later, and we had a daughter and a son, living in a big house with 2 luxury cars. The next 20 years were the happiest I had ever been. My children were both angels. They went through all of school with high grades and were all around the best kids a parent could ask for. When I was nearing my 50s, I decided to retire and left the business to my son and daughter, knowing it would be in good hands. My wife and I decided in our retirement we would follow in the footsteps of my adoptive parents and raise foster kids of our own. We adopted 3 siblings whose parents had died when they were young, a 15-year-old girl, 12-year-old boy, and a 10-year-old girl. I was so happy to give these children a family just like my parents had done for me. We planned to put them through school just like mine did, and open as many opportunities as we could. I remember the day like it was yesterday, 2 years after adopting our kids. It was a completely normal day. Woke up and made my kids breakfast, then drove them to school. I stopped by my office to check up on my son and daughter and advise them on some financials. Went home to my wife, watched a movie, and then left to pick my kids up from school. Came home to my wife's famous casserole dinner and ate around the table as a family. Talked about our days, then sent the kids off to do their homework. Later, I tucked them in and went to bed with my wife. We both read a book for about 30 minutes before turning the lights off and falling asleep. I expected to wake up in my home the next morning and go through the same lovely routine. But I wasn't in my home when I woke up. I woke up in the hospital. I don't know why I was there. I had tubes coming in and out of me, multiple needles in my arm, and I could hear the beeping of a heart monitor. A couple doctors stood over me with a look of shock spread across their faces. They stared at me for a while before leaving the room abruptly. I was left staring into the piercing light above me. I felt different from yesterday. I slowly reached my hand to my head and feel a full head of hair that wasn't there the day before. I moved my hand across my face, feeling the bare skin where a beard once was. Everything was different. I didn't know where my wife or kids were, and I didn't understand why I fell asleep in my home and woke up here. A couple minutes passed before the doctors returned, with about half a dozen people I didn't recognize following behind. They all looked like they'd been crying. When they all saw my face, they started crying even more, except they looked happy. A woman walked up to me and put her hand on my cheek. She expressed how happy she was to see me and how she thought I had passed. I didn't understand why she would think I had died and why she cared so much for me. A man approached and put his hands around the woman's waist. I didn't recognize him at first, but when he uttered the words, "I'm so happy you're alive, son," my brain started flowing with memories. The realization hit me like a truck. It felt like a balloon of hidden memories exploded in my brain. My heart started to hurt as I remembered my parents and how they died when I was 12 years old. The horrific car crash, their bodies lying still, and the emptiness in their eyes. It had been 40 years since this day, and seeing them now sent a wave of confusing emotions through me. I finally spoke, letting every question I had come out at once. "Where have you been? I saw you die. Where is my wife? Where are my kids? Why did I wake up here? Why haven't I seen you since the accident, Mom? And you, Dad? I want to see my family." I was answered with confusing and very concerned looks from everyone in the room. I realized then, after speaking, that my voice was different. I sounded like a kid again, when the day before I was a fully grown adult. I started to realize more changes then, too. My hearing was better. My body felt smaller. I looked down and my chest was small and hairless. I looked up again at my parents and they hadn't changed. They had bruises and cuts on their faces but didn't look a day older than when I last saw them. After about a minute of deafening silence, I started to sob uncontrollably. The next few weeks were full of confusion and depression. I was 12 years old again. The crash that I thought killed my parents had almost killed me. and I had been in a coma for 2 months. I refused to believe that this was real, trying to convince everyone that I was dreaming, that they weren't real, and that I'd wake up next to my wife at any moment. It took me a while to come to terms with things. My wife never existed. My children aren't real. My adoptive parents aren't real. It's been a year now since I woke up in this life. I go to school, see people I don't recognize that know my name, friends that I don't remember. I'm taught things I already know in my middle school classes. I go to therapy 3 times a week, trying to move past the life I had. I feel depressed every day, knowing I'm starting all over. That I'll never see my wife and kids ever again. Why couldn't I have died and continued to live in the life I dreamed? I still pray that I wake up next to my wife every time I fall asleep. The memories of my life are still clear, but I can feel them slowly fading away. I can't stand to think that one day I won't remember the faces of my wife and kids. I will continue to relive my life, starting from beginning again. I know it couldn't have been fabricated. Even if I had to live out this life now, I know I'll see them again. Someday. I moved to my house not long ago. A lot happened in 2021, and since then I couldn't pay the rent of my previous home anymore. So I looked around and convinced this nice little home that fits my budget just right. I went there one morning and during the week to check the place out. The lady took me inside, and the moment I stepped foot inside the house, I immediately knew that this was the place for me. Everything was up to my standard, and the best of it all was the wooden floor. And as all wooden floors are, it creaks when you walk on it. I didn't mind so much at the time. The first few weeks after moving in were wonderful. My friends visited, and even they told me I had found a hidden gem. It was all good. But one night, I was lying in bed reading some Reddit posts when I heard the floor creak at the end of my hallway. I heard it, but didn't care because I knew it was a normal thing. But then the creaking was almost near my door, and then at my door, and it all happened in a matter of seconds. I froze solid, preparing for that someone to come into my room, but it never happened. For a good 10 minutes, I was just waiting and listening for any more sounds, eventually standing up and opening the door just to see a dark hallway, void of all light, and any kind of being or person. A few days went by and nothing happened, and after a while I forgot about it. One weekend, my brother visited me, so because there was only one bedroom, he used my couch to sleep on for the duration of his stay. That night, I woke up from a sound outside my room. Again, I didn't care because I knew my brother was here, and it must have been him that went to the bathroom. I was trying to fall asleep when I heard the creaking again, but this time in front of my door. I was thinking that was my brother up too, when my door slowly opened up. I was frozen and staring down at my room at my open door. Nothing was there. Cold air seeped into my room, making me sit up and calling out to my brother. Took a while for him to come and look at what was happening. We went just for the night to a hotel near me. Didn't sleep one bit. The next day we asked the lady that was renting me the place what the hell was wrong with it. She then told me that 10 years ago there was a woman that shot her husband dead in self-defense, and that since then the presence of the man was in the hallway, making his way to go kill his wife. She told me multiple people experienced the same thing and moved out, making it hard for her to keep up with the bills. That's why the rent was so amazing. Not long after what happened, I moved out too, living with my brother till I can find a new place to call home again. Jacob and I have been friends since longer than I can remember. It all started with a play date at a local playground when we were kids. I don't really remember any details, but I guess we hit it off. We've been friends ever since. Now we're in our mid-20s, and you can say we both have made our fair share of mistakes. Both high school dropouts, drinking and doing drugs way more than we should. We have the same crappy job and no real future in sight. We're about to leave work right now. We unload the truck and stock the shelves at our local Walmart. It's actually hard work, but we get paid like it isn't, and our shift is about over. Hey Kevin, what are you doing after work tonight? That's Sarah, my current beautiful girlfriend who should leave me but is too young to realize. She's only 18, so she just doesn't understand how big of a loser I am yet. Believe it or not, she actually thinks I'm cool. Not much, babe. Just gonna go home, watch the Yanks with Jacob, and drink beer until I pass out. Why, do you want to come over? I actually can't tonight. I have school in the morning. I don't want you to keep me up late. She says with a cute, fake, sad face. That's alright. I'll text you when I get home. I use my badge to clock out of work and then head right for the big swinging doors that separate the behind the scenes of Walmart from the customer side. It's 1 a.m. so the store is dead even though it is a 24-hour super Walmart. I start making my way up the long hall that leads to the front door and I see Jacob in the front door waiting for me. This is normal. We commute together so he's always waiting for me up front. Jacob has longish black hair like an old emo band member that comes right down to his eyebrows. He's skinny and always has ripped jeans, along with his Walmart vest and a name tag that says Cobb. I gave him that nickname. As I made it out about halfway down the hall, I realized Jacob was staring at me. I mean, I don't know if that's weird or not. Does he normally watch me walk to him? Why am I just now noticing this? I realize I don't really think this is normal. He's not even blinking. Maybe I'm just overreacting. I finally reach him. Hey Cobb, you ready to go, man? He doesn't respond. He's just staring. Not like he's zoned out, he's really focused on me. Cobb, let's go, brother. I say, kind of lightly touching his arm. I see Jacob's face snap like he just found reality again. Yeah, man, let's head home, he says, not realizing he was just acting like a complete weirdo. We say goodbye to some of the other co-workers and head outside to the car. Jacob gets in the passenger seat as I'm waving goodbye to Big Ron. I drop my butt into the driver's seat. You ready for this? I'm interrupted by Jacob's stare. Again, it's not like he's zoned out, more like he's zoned in. Like a frenzied stare. Every move I make, he is following me. Cobb, you alright, man? No answer. I try shaking his arm much harder than last time. Come on, Cobb. What's up, dude? Still no answer. I put the key in the ignition, start the car, and turn the radio on. I guess I'm just trying to act normal. I really don't know what else to do. I drop the car into reverse and look back to see where I'm going while backing out of our spot. Jacob stares right at my face the whole time. I lean forward while pushing back into drive. Jacob is still just staring at me, following me with his eyes. I start on my way home. It's only like a 5-minute drive, but halfway there, I'm feeling more awkward than I've ever felt in my life. My body is warm, and my back is literally itching. I'm keeping my eyes forward, successfully ignoring the crazy going on beside me. A country song that I don't know the name of, but I recognize comes on the radio. Double shot, 80 proof, on the rocks. What the? It's Jacob. He's singing the song on the radio. I look over and he's acting totally normal. No more staring. He's singing this stupid song and sticking his hand out the window, feeling the breeze. Cobb, what the fuck, dude? Why do you keep staring at me like that? Jacob stops singing and looks at me in shock, eyebrows lowered. What are you talking about, dude? I'm just chilling. No, dude, you keep staring at me. Are you not remembering? Are you, like, in a trance or something? I'm really getting frustrated. Alright, stop getting so upset, man. I'm not staring at you. I think you're freaking out about nothing. No, I'm not freaking out about nothing. You're for sure staring at me and somehow you're not remembering. You were just staring at me for like 5 minutes, dude. You did it when we were leaving work, too. I'm probably just zoning out or something, man. I don't think so. The way you're staring is weird. If it happens again, I'm really going to freak, I say, trying to rack my brain for what I would even do. Jacob puts his hand out the window and just looks straight. The rest of the car ride was silence. The long walk into our apartment was silence. We were both acting awkward towards each other. When we get inside, I take a straight right and Jacob takes a straight left. I'm heading into the kitchen to get us both some glasses of Jack Daniels on ice. He, I assume, is heading to the living room to get the Yankee game we recorded on the TV. I lean on the whiskey a bit, really filling the drink glasses. I figure we could both benefit from chilling out a bit. I head to the living room, but from the hallway I don't hear the TV playing. I'm getting the painful feeling that when I walk out there, Jacob is going to be staring at me. I turn the corner and look at Jacob. He's totally fine. He's got the game on, and he's looking in the couch cushions for something. He looks up at me. Just trying to find the remote for the sound. I think I got it. Yep, here it is. He says, pulling the remote out from the cushion and showing it to me. I figured we should go with whiskey instead of beer tonight. Chill us both right out, I say, smirking at him. Good choice, he says, smirking back. The night actually goes smoothly. No staring, just watching the game, getting drunk, and when it gets late enough, we head to bed. We have a 2-bedroom apartment. I have the bigger room, and Jacob has the smaller room. We did it that way because I tend to always have female guests, and Jacob just sticks to himself most of the time. Jacob goes into his room and closes the door. I do the same. I take my clothes off down to my blue boxer briefs and climb into bed under my nice big comforter. I swear there's nothing better than going to sleep just the right amount of drunk. I wake up in the middle of the night to a pitch black room, which is normal when I've been drinking. I always get up to pee. Still feeling a bit of a buzz, I climb out of bed and head over to my door. I start to feel a little bit of hesitancy. All of a sudden, Jacob's staring came back into my head. I keep trying to tell myself it was no big deal, but if you saw it, you would understand. It was very intense. What if he's standing outside my door staring? I slowly turn the handle of my bedroom door, now starting to really feel the terror creeping. The door clicks open and I slowly open it. Nothing. I feel a sigh of relief. I walk into the hallway and look over at Jacob's bedroom door. It's closed and there's no light coming from underneath the door. I was freaking out about nothing. I head out to the kitchen and leave the light off. I open the cupboard and grab a glass, then walk over to the sink and turn it on. I fill the glass with some cold water. I figure if I drink some now, it will pay dividends in the morning. As I'm drinking my water, I notice one of our bar stools are missing. Normally we have 2 black bar stools that sit on the other side of our kitchen bar, and for some reason one of them is missing. Maybe Jacob needed to climb up on it and left it in his room. Whatever. I put the glass in the sink and walk back down the hallway to the bathroom. I open the door and walk up to the front of the toilet, again leaving the light off. I take a piss, flush the toilet, and head back to my room. I hop back in bed and fall right back to sleep, no problem. I wake up to the sound of singing. Double shot, 80 proof on the rocks. It's the same song from last night in the car and Jacob is really belting it out. I pull the covers off my head and sit up, stretching while looking around my room. Then I notice it in my room. The bar stool from the kitchen is sitting in the corner of my bedroom. Why is it in my room? Then I remembered last night. It wasn't in the kitchen. Was Jacob in my room last night? Doing what? Staring? I can feel my chest tightening. My mind is spacey, almost like what's happening isn't even real. What the hell is going on? What do I do? Confronting him is useless. He's going to say I am the crazy one. Thankfully, I can hear him singing, so I know he's at least in normal mode right now. I get up, put on some sweats and a t-shirt, then make my way to the kitchen, till you've lost it all and you can't go back to your life. Jacob is still singing and flipping pancakes on the stove. To his right is a giant stack, maybe 10. We can never eat what he's already made, and he's still cooking more. Good morning, Cobb. How many pancakes are you making, man? I don't know, man. I think I just got a little carried away, he says as he flips the 2 onto the stack. He then pours more batter into the skillet. I would tell him to stop, but honestly, that's the least of my worries right now. I sit down on the remaining bar stool, the other still in the room. Hey, Cobb, where's the other stool? It's not there? He says, not even looking back at me. Nope. I have no clue. I haven't seen it. Still, he hasn't looked at me. Hey, man, I'm going to have Sarah come over for breakfast since you are making so much. I figure maybe if he has one of his episodes in front of her, we can both convince him something is wrong. I text Sarah telling her to come over. She lives in the same apartment complex as us, so it will only take her a couple of minutes to get here. I decide to switch gears, trying to ask him questions that might slip him up. Did you sleep good last night? Did you get up at all? Nope, I slept great. That's why I'm in such a good mood, man. This time he turns back towards me and throws up a peace sign. That's when I see he's wearing sunglasses. He's joked before about being cool and wearing shades inside, but I know he's just trying to hide bloodshot, tired eyes. Alright, man, well, I'm going to take a quick 10-minute shower. Sarah's coming over, so when I get out, we'll eat breakfast and spend the day together. Maybe even hit the Yankee game tonight. Sounds good to me, he says as he begins his singing again. Till you've lost it all, and you can't go back to your life. I head into the bathroom, pull back the shower curtain and turn on the hot water, letting it get warmed up. Then I sit on the toilet so I can empty myself out. After about a minute, I hear the doorbell ring. Then I hear the front door open, and just like that, Sarah and Jacob are talking. I can't make out exactly what they're saying, but clearly Jacob is still acting totally normal. That's a good thing for sure, but I do hope she'll at least get to see what I have, because otherwise she might not take me seriously. I finish my business, then hop in the shower. From the shower, I really can't hear anything out in the kitchen, and that's what makes me uncomfortable, so I wash myself quickly. Maybe 2 to 3 minutes tops. I rinse and then turn off the shower, and all I hear is silence. They're not talking out there. Maybe he is doing the staring. I hop out of the shower as fast as I can, dry myself off, and start getting dressed. As I'm putting my shirt on, I start to hear Jacob singing again. Till you've lost it all, and you can't go back to your life. I open the door and head to the kitchen to find Jacob making more pancakes. The stack must have at least 20 there now. There's no sign of Sarah. Hey, Cobb, where's Sarah at? Jacob looks back at me, still wearing his stupid sunglasses. I don't know, man. I think she left. Did she say where she was going? I don't think so. I reach into my pocket and check my phone. No missed texts or calls. I walk down the hallway to my bedroom, shut the door, and sit on my bed. I call Sarah, and it goes straight to voicemail. I hang up and try to call again. Still nothing. One more time. Nothing. I decide to leave a message. Hey babe, I know you're probably freaking out, but that staring thing is what I was trying to show you. I don't know why he's doing that, but I really need your support, so please call me right back. I hang up the phone and realize I need to go confront Jacob. He needs help. I open the bedroom door and jump. Jacob is standing right at my door with a plate of pancakes and a big smile on his face. Ready to eat, Kev? I barely knew what to say. There were 10 pancakes on the plate. Clearly something was wrong with my best friend. Yeah, man. Let's eat. We sit at the kitchen table, but I'm not very hungry. I figure I can at least use this moment to take a breath and figure out exactly what to do about this situation. We both have plates with a ridiculous stack of pancakes. There's butter on the table and tall glasses of milk. This would be a great breakfast if not for the whole "my friend is going crazy" thing. Jacob starts slathering his pancakes with a ridiculous amount of butter. He's doing all 10 of his pancakes also. Want some butter, man? No, I'm fine. I I really wasn't in the mood for butter or really anything at that moment. I was just trying to keep it cool. I pulled my phone out of my wallet to check and still no call from Sarah. I cut my pancakes, put on some syrup, and start eating. I know I should have been too upset to eat, but after a hard night of drinking, I'm starving. How do you like them? Jacob says with his giant smile, refusing to take those ridiculous shades off. Alright, man, let's stop beating around the bush. What's going on? I know you were in my bedroom all night last night staring at me. I seen the stool. You forgot to put it back. Jacob's smile goes away. His face goes flat. He's not frowning, just blank. He looks down at his pancakes. He cuts a piece, then puts the piece of pancake in his mouth and chews. He still hasn't responded to me. Come on, man, don't lie to me. I know you must remember something. You must have been there all night because I got up pretty early in the night and saw the stool missing. Jacob swallows and looks at me. I'm nervous about his response. He clearly took in what I was saying this time. How do you like the pancakes? I sat in shock. Part of me wanted to freak out and start screaming at him, but I froze. I couldn't really say anything. Then Jacob went back to his blank face. Then he did it again. He started staring. He stopped eating, just sitting there looking at me. Believe it or not, I actually started eating my pancakes. I was so scared, but I must have been in shock or something. I really don't know. I think I just wanted things to be normal so bad. I sat and ate my pancakes and waited for him to do something. Minutes went by, but then felt like hours. Finally, a switch flipped in me. My anger took over and my anxiety moved out of the way. What is going on, dude? Why are you acting like this? I reached over the table and snatched the glasses off of Jacob's face. Underneath, I expected to see bloodshot eyes staring at me, but it was much worse. Jacob had sewn his eyes open. His top eyelash was sewn right under his eyebrow. His bottom eyelash was sewn to the top of his cheek. Obviously, eyelashes don't reach very far, so it was mainly the stitching that made the stretch. The red from the inside of the bottom of his eye was just disgusting to look at. Cobb? What did you do? I want to see. I don't want to miss anything, Jacob said for the first time, acknowledging the situation. Jacob, something is wrong with you. We need to go to the hospital. I can see everything now. Sarah didn't understand at first, but she gets it now. I showed her. What? Where is Sarah? What do you mean you showed her? Jacob started smiling. She didn't want to see like I see, so I made her see like she sees. Like you see. You have a choice. You can either see like me or see like her. What are you talking about? What did you do to her? Jacob reached for the glass of milk sitting in the right of his plate. He reached for the glass to the right of his plate. That's all I remember. I know he must have smashed it against my temple because my temple was killing me when I woke up. It still is. I know it knocked me out because it's the last thing I can remember before waking up here. All around this room there are drawings of eyes on pieces of paper. They are plastered all over the walls. There must be hundreds or thousands. I don't know, it could be millions. Just eyes staring at me. There's a computer in the middle of the room on a desk. It's locked. I can see the time and date on the lock screen, though, which is a blessing. There's no windows here, so without it, I wouldn't have a clue of the time. I think that's keeping me a little more sane than I should be otherwise. It's been 3 days. At the bottom of the door that's keeping me locked in here, it looks like there used to be a mail slit that got ripped out and then cut to be much bigger. Jacob, I assume, although I haven't seen him, drops food in a plastic container. Pre-cut pancakes, slathered in melted butter and syrup for breakfast, tacos for dinner. The containers are stuffed, crazy-sized portions, more than I could ever eat. I've been saving whatever I don't eat in case he doesn't show up for a day. At the top of the door is the same exact cutout, matching the one at the bottom. I swear at night sometimes I look over and see the whites of Jacob's eyes staring at me. I'm not sure though, because every time I've jumped up to check they are gone. Maybe I'm imagining them. Now I just try to ignore it and sleep. Right now I'm waiting for breakfast, trying not to think about Sarah or the situation I'm in. I know keeping my cool is the only chance I have here. After about 45 minutes pass, I hear footsteps coming to the door. The plastic container drops through the bottom slit. The first 3 days I was here, I would plead with Jacob to let me go, but on day 4 I've given up. That's not going to work. I walk over to the container and notice there's a piece of paper folded and taped to it, held on by a single piece of tape. I rip it off and read it. Password. See how I see. I look at it for a second and then it hits me. It's the password to the computer. I drop the container and run over to the computer. I type in the password and it logs on. I bring up the Internet Explorer and try Google. Nothing. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anything I can think of to reach a person I actually know. Nothing works. I exit the browser and see on the home screen there is a folder that says, Sarah. I can feel the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I open the file. There's just one video in it. I start the video. Sarah is laying on a table awake. She's crying. Jacob is standing to the right of the table. He's talking to her, but the only word I can make out is see. It's just his crazy rambling. Then Jacob picks up a kitchen knife and with no hesitation he starts cutting the bottom of her eye. Sarah starts screaming more horrifically than I've ever heard someone scream. The movies don't do it justice. Or maybe it's just because she's my girlfriend. I look away but end up looking back. He's trying to cut her eye out. I can't watch this. I skip through the video. I see him start to work on her left eye. Then he stuffs gauze in her eyes and stitches her eyelids over it. She screams the whole entire time. I just keep skipping through till I get to the end. She's still alive. She's not moving or making any noise, but I see her chest breathing. Jacob then walks over to the camera and looks right into it. His eyes still sewn open. Do you want to see like her? Or do you want to see like me? I shut the computer screen off. I walk over to the bed and just sit on it. I want to cry, but I can't. Something is wrong with me. I'm having a hard time even feeling right now. I lay down and just fall asleep. I wake up to the sound of a plastic container hitting the ground. I walk over and grab the tacos. Again, there is a folded piece of paper on the container. I open it and read it. Tonight you choose. I walk over to the computer and sit on the chair. After 20 minutes of just thinking, I decide to get on the computer and check if Reddit works. It does, but no one I know uses Reddit. I have no clue where I am, so I guess I'm just posting this for your advice. I'm eating the tacos. About a third of the way through them. What do you guys think I should do? Obviously, I should choose keeping my eyes open. Much less brutal. I think my only chance at survival is attacking him when he comes in. If I can just find a weapon around here, I can win. Heck, I am bigger than him. I've always been stronger. I can beat him even without a weapon. I just need to catch him by surprise in case he has one. Do you have any ideas? I'm starting to feel really tired though. Like, more tired than I've ever felt in my life. I can't even think, and typing is getting really hard. Wait, this is bad. I've never felt like this. That bastard. He beat me. I think he put something in my food. This story is something which I personally witnessed and have heard mentioned by several people. After I graduated college, I came back home for a year. My family needed me and I was alright with taking a year off school. While I was home, I got a job as a stage manager of a local theater. The theater itself isn't too old, built in the early 60s. The job was pretty straightforward. Make sure our clients had all the stuff they needed for their performances, set up the sound and lights, and help get their guests seated. After the show, the clients would load up all their gear, hand me a tip, and clear out. On evening shows, this meant that I usually wasn't able to do final rounds till past midnight. The theater was connected to a wing of the local community college through a side door in the lobby. At the end of each day, I would have to go and turn off all the lights and lock all the doors, making sure that nobody was left in either the theater or the school's wing. I'm not sure how many of you have ever had to lock up a big building like this by yourself, but this is something that has both tinges of fear and power. My routine would be to leave my office, which was backstage, unlocked and with the lights on. I would then go to the lobby, lock everything up, check the bathrooms, then go to the wing of the school, lock the lobby doors behind me, and then proceed to lock the doors of the art wing of the school whilst also checking the bathrooms there. It was stress from day one that I must check all the bathrooms. It kind of made sense to me at the time, so I didn't ask why this was so important. After checking both the lobby and the art wing and locking it all up, I would go outside for a smoke, then get back to the office to turn off the lights, lock up, and clock out. While I was working there, a number of strange things happened. The first time I saw him was about a week after I started working there. It would be the first time I lock up the theater by myself. I did my rounds, knocking on the bathroom doors and poking my head in and half-heartedly saying, "You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Final call for anybody that doesn't want to spend the night here." Of course, nobody ever replied. It was always just me. Everything is locked up. I head back to the office to clock out. The thing is this. The light controls are next to my office. The exit is on the opposite side of the stage. Once I turned off the lights, only the computer monitor where I clock in and out would be lit up. Everything else was pitch dark. And let me tell you, a dark hallway is one kind of dark, but a unlit cavernous theater is completely different kind of dark. I carried a little flashlight on my utility belt, which I would use to find my way up to the small flight of stairs to the exit. But this night, it turned out much more differently. As I clock out and kill the lights and start my trek across the stage, I hear something. One of the seats is in the back right corner of the auditorium suddenly snaps up. These are theater-style seats, the kind that fold down to sit and then automatically raise back up when somebody gets off them. I freeze in my tracks, shine my light over to where I heard the sound. Then I see that the curtain in the back of the theater, where people enter and exit through, are moving. There was no AC or anything left powered on. I was scared stiff. "Hello? We're closing up for the night. Can I help you find your way out?" Funny how I used the word "we're," even though I was completely alone. But of course, there was no response. I didn't know what to do. Do I just leave and risk locking up a person? Potentially a burglar in the theater? Do I call and wake up my boss to make a fool of myself on the first week? Or do I nut up and go have a look? I stood on that dark stage in deafening silence, pondering what I should do. I could feel the onset of the fight or flight reaction kicking in. Adrenaline is pumping and I go to my office and grab a better flashlight. You know, the kind that could double for a decent melee weapon. I go out through the curtains and into the lobby. I check all the doors, still locked. If somebody went through this curtain, they didn't leave the building, which means... fuck. They went upstairs to the second level seating. I hate that place at night so much. To get to the second level, you first have to go up a flight of stairs, then through a dark hallway, then finally up another flight. The hallway scares me like no other hallway ever has. It's long, painted a dark color, and unless I go and turn on all the lights, it's going to stay dark. Not to mention the semi-secret passage behind the fire hose, which gives access to some of the stage and auditorium lights. I steel my nerves and slowly climb up, trying to make as little sound as possible. I finally make my way on the top and look around. Nothing. I know I heard that chair. I know I saw that curtain move, but there is nobody there. Hello? Suddenly, the loading dock door slams shut. What the fuck? I locked those. I can see the stage from the second level and the faint glow from the computer screen near the office casse light on the main curtain. Somebody just moved past them. Hey, you better show yourself right now or I'm calling the cops. It was a bluff, of course. I wasn't going to call the cops. I didn't want all my coworkers and boss to think I was crazy. I run down on the first level, basically bounding past all the seats and jump up on stage ready to throw down with whoever was there. Again, nothing. I go to the office, turn on all the lights. Don't think you can hide. I will find you, and when I do, I will charge you with trespassing on private property. I look everywhere. The dressing rooms, under the stage, above the stage, the auditorium, the lobby, the emergency exit, each and every bathroom stall. I check the doors. All are locked. Even the loading bay doors are strangely locked despite having heard them slam. What the fuck is going on? I call my coworker, who I know happens to be a night owl. I tell him what has been happening. He asks me, "Did you check all the bathrooms?" I told him yes. The art wing and lobby bathrooms as well as the dressing room bathroom are all checked and locked. What about the projection room? Did you check the bathroom up there? Shit, there's a bathroom up there? Why would anybody be in that bathroom? You need a key to get into the projection room. Nobody should be up there, I say. Just check it. I make my way back up to the top. At least going to the second level isn't so scary when all the lights are on. I take out my key ring and try to figure out which of these several dozen keys opens the projection room. Finally, I find it. I open the door and find a collection of all the outdated technology that once made this theater hum. Ancient light boards, giant soundboards, all sorts of various cables and gadgets from a bygone era. On the back wall next to a pile of nondescript cardboard boxes is a door. The bathroom door. I try opening it. It's locked. I jumble through my keys again until I find the right one. I open the door. The smell of ammonia comes wafting out, forcing me to put my shirt over my nose. I flip the light switch, of course. Nothing happens. Still dark, even the lights from the auditorium don't reach into here. Inside there is a single stall and a sink and a single red brick on the floor. I shine my flashlight under the stall, praying there won't be a set of feet. I slowly approach it, tap on it, then gently open it. Nothing. I call the coworker back. I just checked the bathroom. It was locked and nobody was in there. That's alright. Just go ahead and lock up now. Did you see a red brick, right? Yeah, what does that have to do with anything? There is somebody here. Somebody was here. Why are the bathrooms so important? What's going on? Don't worry about it. I'll explain at work tomorrow. Just go on home and make sure everything is locked. I go back down, kill the lights, and turn out the exit. Jump in my car, and before my ass is in the seats, I have the engine running and I'm peeling out of there. The next day at work, I talk to my coworker. So, you met the foreman. The who-man? The foreman. I call him Chester, but I'm not sure if that is really his name. He just seems like a Chester. What are you talking about? Who's Chester? Who's the foreman? Follow me. We go up to the hallway between the first and second level. In the middle of the hallway is the fire hose. My coworker opens the panel, removes the fire hose, then slides the back panel to the side. He goes through. Careful, watch your step. Don't want you to end up like old Chester. He shimmies off to the side to make room for me to go through. I climb through. I am standing on a metal pole barely more than 4 inches thick. Beneath it is the ceiling of the auditorium. Stay on the pole. The ceiling can support about 80 pounds of weight, and you look like you weigh a bit more than that. We slink along the pole until we were under the projection room. I can see the plumbing run down from what must be the bathroom. Over there. My coworker points to a spot in the auditorium ceiling that has been patched up. It's directly above where I heard the seat snap up the night before. He explains that during construction, the foreman had come up to the projection room to supervise. The walls and ceiling around it hadn't been finished yet. Suddenly, a brick fell from the crates, being lifted by a crane. It hit the foreman on the head. He lost his balance, fell onto and through the auditorium ceiling, and landed where later the chairs would go. He was dead when he hit the ground. "Do you believe in ghosts?" asks my coworker. "I don't know. Maybe." When I first started working here, I was told to check the bathroom. When I went in, there was a red brick, like those of the main wall, right in the middle of the bathroom floor. I had no idea where it came from or how it got there. The door was locked after all. "Did you see a red brick?" I told him that I did. Then he said it isn't always there, just when Chester is around, and that is why it is important to check the bathroom. If there is stuff going and no red brick, it isn't Chester. We climb back down and he begins telling me stories of his sightings and other people's sightings. One day there was this theater instructor who was putting on a play. She was sitting in the back row watching the actors do their thing. She said she heard a man sit down behind her, assuming it to be her boss checking in on the progress, so she started talking to him about the play, pointing out certain actors and telling him what they were doing well and what they were screwing up. After talking for about 5 minutes, she asked him what he thought. No answer. She looked behind her and saw the curtain moving. She felt angry that her boss wouldn't even answer her, so she went after him. She quickly came running back, asking if there was going to be any construction going on. When we asked why, she said she had just seen a man in a hard hat go up to the 2nd level. "Have you met Misty yet?" asked my coworker. "No, who's she?" "Oh, I guess you haven't met her yet. I won't spoil the surprise." As I worked there, I began to become used to seeing Chester do his thing. A shadow walking towards the curtains, the sound of the chair. He seemed to still be supervising construction, but other than being initially creepy, he didn't bother me anymore. Misty, though, on the other hand... Misty was frightening, and like Chester, Misty too was connected to one of the bathrooms. Continuation of my previous post. As I said, Misty was different from the foreman. The foreman was creepy, alright, but after working at the theater for a couple of weeks and eventually months, he became an expected part of my work routine. He never left the auditorium. He would be around, and a red brick in the projection room bathroom seemed to denote his presence. The frightening stuff happened when there wasn't a red brick in that bathroom. One of the duties when locking up was to check the bathrooms. On the first night locking up by myself, I learned that this was not just a precaution to make sure all visitors were out, but rather as a test for seeing what was responsible for the spooky stuff that went on in the theater at night. The theater isn't big, but it is one of the largest structures in my town, actually coming in 3rd for tallest building in the country. That said, the bottom level seating could hold around 650 people, and the top level seating could hold about another 150 more. The ceilings were really high. I'm not sure of the exact height, but changing the lights in the ceiling was not for those with vertigo, and it took several attempts before I became sure-footed on the monkey bars. The poles which ran from light to light in the ceiling. Another thing that might be said is the OSHA would have shut it down on so many counts of unsafe working environment if they had ever bothered to show up. To get to the top of the fly system, a series of ropes and pulleys used to move various things on stage. You had to wrap your foot around a rope and kick off the counterweights with the other, and when you would zoom more than 100 feet upwards, from there you had to reach across a 5-foot gap to another rope and pull yourself onto the fly system. Getting down required you to either slide down the rope, which nobody did since you can't wear gloves, as they would slicken the rope too much and rendering the brakes useless, or have a coworker wait until you had your foot wrapped around the rope, and then he'd attach counterweights which would shoot you up as you came down. We had no safety equipment at all because, quite frankly, even if we did, there was nothing to attach it to. So if something got tangled in the fly system, somebody would have to cowboy up and fix it. It wasn't for the faint of heart, and I have a feeling that bungee jumping or skydiving was exponentially safer. But that was the part of the job that I loved. The feeling of walking a dangerous line, all because, as that famous theater saying goes, the show must go on. It also helped me to get in the pants of some of the actresses as they watched me rock up the rickety fly system using nothing but my hands and feet. I was a fearless bastard, confidently shimmying across thin metal poles more than 100 feet in the air, dangling from ropes to change lights, and generally doing things in the least safe way possible as to impress the ladies with my nonchalant attitude towards danger and safety. Although I may have been Tarzan during working hours, at night when I had to lock up, it was a different story. No longer was this my theater. Once I was in the soul of the building, it exchanged hands. It became the foreman and Misty's territory, and she was not shy to let me know I was passing through her domain. Misty scared me like the fly system never could. I'll never forget the first time I met her. I was locking up as usual, whistling a tune which helped me forget about the scary pitch-black cave I had to look after. I would tip my hat to the foreman if I ever thought I saw him. After all, he was a working man just like me, and continue with my round. I had locked up the auditorium and was heading to the art school wing. The art school was set up like a T. The doors of the lobby of the auditorium would have been at the bottom of the T. Straight ahead were glass double doors, which would have been at the top of the T. At the end of the crossbar of the T were also glass double doors. At the intersection of the two lines where the bathrooms were, there are doors openings towards the long corridor coming from the auditorium's lobby. I locked up the auditorium and go into the art wing. The lights are off, only faint lights shining through the glass double doors ahead of me. I take a breath and turn around to lock the lobby doors. I start walking down the hall to check the glass doors are locked, which was the responsibility of the school's security guards. But my duty is double check. As I am walking towards them, I hear the faucet in the women's bathroom start running. I stop in my tracks. Nobody should be here. I duck into the door frame of one of the classrooms as I wait for somebody to come out, my eyes searching for a shape to appear against the dim lights ahead. The water just keeps running. Then I hear a loud splash, and being a coward, if there is something wrong with the plumbing, my eyes searching for a shape to appear against the dim light ahead. The water just keeps running. Then I hear a loud splash and my heart skips a beat. Again, I find myself in a position where I must choose between doing my job or being a coward. If there is something wrong with the plumbing and I make a beeline for the exit, and there ends up being water damage, I am sure I'll be held responsible for not fixing, or at least reporting it. I start making my way closer to the women's bathroom door, making sure to keep myself in the shadows. As I get closer, I hear the sink is overflowing. Water is trickling over the edge and onto the tile floor. It's amazing how much detail you can hear in empty buildings. I get closer still until I hear sobbing. Fuck. There is no way this is going to end up in anything happy, joyful, or full of rainbow farting ponies. I consider the possibilities. A forlorn student, a junkie who broke in, a straight-up lunatic. I look at my watch, 12:45, but it could just easily be any other hour of the late night because it feels as though the rest of the world is hours away, despite just being on the other side of the brick wall. I take another step forward. The sobbing stops. Not in the way a crying person may have convinced themselves to stop crying, but in the way a person might quickly stop crying because they become aware of another person nearby. I feel as though whoever was crying has become aware of my presence. I'll admit, I almost pissed my pants. I dart across the hallway and into the janitor's closet and open the door just wide enough for my eye to spy the women's bathroom door. A few seconds later, it slams open with a loud wham that echoed through the hallway for a few seconds. I jump. Fuck this. What am I supposed to do? I think about calling my night owl coworker, but won't want to make my presence known, let alone move for fear of betraying myself. Then I hear the sound of wet footsteps. Pit-pat, pit-pat, pit-pat. A car drives by outside, casting a brief beam of light along the length of the corridor. and I see what I swear is a dark hand on the door frame of the bathroom basically across the hall from where I am hiding. I hold my breath. The hand disappears back into the bathroom door and closes the door behind it. I get the keys out of my pocket. I find the key to the lobby door and ready myself for a sprint down the hall. 1, 2, 3. I open the door gingerly and close it behind me. Just then I hear the women's bathroom door start creaking open. Fuck. I go from sneaking to an Olympic sprint, the key held in my hand. There are wet footsteps following me, but I dare not turn around. I strain my eyes in the dark as I approach the double doors, trying to anticipate where the lock will be. I extend my hand and try to stick the key in its hole. It just scrapes the metal until I feel it push in, and just as quickly I flick my wrist, hear the lock open, snap out my keys, hurl myself behind the door, and close it. Just as I am closing it, I catch a glimpse of her. She had stopped chasing me and was standing in the middle of the hallway with her head down, one hand over her throat and the other pointing at me. I lock the lobby door and push a table in front of it. I run around the back of the stage and lock all the doors, locking myself in the theater. I go to my office and turn on each and every light in the auditorium. Unfortunately, the Art Wing's lights are not under my purview. It remains dark. I'm trying to make sense of what I just saw, trying to rationalize it, hoping it's just an actress from tonight's show who decided to mess with me. I call my coworker, and I tell him what I saw. He asks me if the red brick was in the projection room bathroom. I tell him I'll go check and call him back. Before hanging up, he tells me, I told you to check all the bathrooms before locking up. I make my way up there and see that there isn't a red brick. I call him back and tell him, did you check any other bathrooms? Which ones did you not check? I told him I checked all the bathrooms except the ones in the art wing. Misty, is all he says. Okay, the next time you hire somebody, you might want to tell the applicant about Chester and Misty before they start locking up on their own. You don't think we have? People are afraid of Chester and he's a pussycat. How would you have reacted if we told you about this? Never mind, just tell me what to do about Misty. Avoid her. What happens if I don't? I wouldn't want to find out. You mean you avoid her too? Like the plague. How am I supposed to lock up with her around? Wait until she's gone? How will I know if she's gone? Check the bathrooms. But she is in the bathroom. Chester and her don't get along. If there's a red brick in the projection room bathroom, she won't be around. If there isn't a red brick, you are going to have to wait until there is. So I just go up to the projection room bathroom and wait for a red brick to magically appear. No, it doesn't work like that. Well, how does it work then? Do something in the theater. Sweep the stage, change light bulbs, clean the dressing room. Do any of the things we are paying you to do until you see the curtains move, or hear the loading doors slam. Then go check the bathrooms and lock up and go home. I do as he says. I sweep the stage and check the water filter in the drinking fountain and restock the concession stand. While restocking the concession stand, I can't take my eyes off the lobby doors. I swear at one point I see that pacing back and forth on the other side, but I tell myself I'm just trying to see things now, and it's way too dark on the other side of those doors for there to be a shadow. After puttering around, I check my clock. 1:36 a.m. I decide to check the bathrooms again. I go up to the projection room after checking the other bathrooms and breathe a sigh of relief when I see the red brick. I must have missed Chester coming in. I go to the lobby doors and put my ears against them. Chester, I hope you got my back on this one, I say out loud. I put my keys in the door and hear the lock turn. I slowly open the door as light from the lobby floods in. Nothing there at all. I decide to make this as quick as possible. I rush to the glass doors first. They are locked. I then go into the men's bathroom, tap on the stall doors, and say it's time to go home and head out. I hesitate outside the women's bathroom door. I take a breath and puff out my chest and try to remember that there is water on the floor. But to my surprise, there isn't. I look under the stalls to see if any feet are there. nothing. But I still feel uneasy, like I fell in a pit with a hungry lioness who just happens to be asleep. I make my way out and back to the lobby. I decide to change my usual pattern, and instead of leaving through the art wing's other exit, I leave back through the lobby to my well-lit sanctuary in the theater. I go backstage, clock out, turn off the lights, hurry outside to my car, and go home. And that was how I first met Misty. Although it wouldn't be the last time. You remember that rickety fly system? So does she.